Hi, welcome back to my channel. Let me tell you something I wish I had known earlier in my marriage. Obedience isn't weakness, it's a strength, and it's the strongest kind there is. But I didn't always believe that. I think, like many other women, I came into the marriage, really full of passion and purpose, but also a lot of pressure. Um, Pressure to be everything and to be seen as everything. Someone who can be a professional, have a professional career, um, bear children, be a mother, be a wonderful wife, a doting, caring wife, be a good friend, to all my friends. Like, we want to do it all, and we think we can do it all too. Um, but when that pressure builds up, it didn't make me more loving. It it really took away my capacity to love. Um, and what it did instead was make me become very controlling. Now, if you've heard that you can tend to be controlling, but you've dismissed it before, maybe you need to listen to this. Maybe it's for you. I feel like over the years, as a therapist, I've sat with many women uh, that are crying, not over the big betrayals, but kind of a slow erosion of who they once were. Um, and they often don't feel seen. They they feel that, feeling alone, um, they they are alone. They feel very alone in sort of in the marriage, in the house. Maybe they feel um distant from their kids. They're not angry just because of their husbands. Um, that's that's not the only reason. They're angry because they were hoping to be more cherished, as individuals. Um, but they become just someone who's managing a to-do list. And that type of exhaustion, it often really morphs into control, as I was saying. It's very subtle at first. It's more like tiny little correcting, maybe eye rolling, but then some real hardcore resentment starts to build. And eventually, silence and withdrawal. Um, I've lived that. I've been there. So when women come to me now, I can completely empathize with them and have that compassion for them. And I know exactly what they're talking about. I'd say that the decades of the 40s, for me, that decade, I really mistook leadership for domination. When my husband was trying to lead the family, I I equated this to domination. I don't know where I got that from, but it was very evident. And also, I think I I allowed, my independence as a means of protection somehow. I felt like I was protecting myself or my children, but it really wasn't that. What obedience is not, okay? I need for you to understand this. So let's pause for a second here because I can hear the objections coming from you already. Obedience? Like, if you're like me, I think, there's sort of like a cold shiver that goes down your spine when you hear that word. I think about the 1950s housewife, right? I think about Joan Cleaver. Um, but that's not it. No. It's nothing to do with passivity. It's not about tolerating abuse. Okay, let's make that very clear. And it's certainly not about being a doormat. Okay. Um, I listened to a very uh, intelligent and wise theologian. His name is Father Ian Newsy. You can find him on YouTube. He speaks all about the divine will, and I won't get into that. But um, he said something that really landed one day with me. He said that Jesus was never called to be nice. He wasn't the nice guy. Okay. Like, have you ever thought of it like that before? You know, he didn't walk, his 33 years on this earth as being known as just a really nice guy, that kind of prophesized and stuff like that. He was incredibly loving. That's what he was. The type of love that you can't even imagine, and he was obedient, guys, while loving. He was obedient to the Father. He was all about obedience. And that obedience did not make him weak. Far from it. You know, it made him incredibly courageous. And his his words were very clear. Um, so I think we really need to reframe this whole tenderness bit. You know, I think women today have really equated tenderness with weakness, and it's not that. It's not like, um, it's not that that soft heart is means that you're a weak, meek woman. We've been told, just like men, to toughen up, to speak louder and boundaries. It's just like all the stuff about boundaries, all these books about boundaries and stuff like that. And sure, we need to hold our own. We need to be firm. But that doesn't mean heart of heart. Like, honestly, like, micromanaging doesn't protect your heart. It just hardens it. So you need to make that distinction. Obedience, rightly understood, isn't about suppressing your voice. Not at all. It's about entrusting the outcome to someone higher than yourself. It's about making room for grace to do the heavy lifting. It's asking for that grace because your will is not enough. Okay? It's really about letting go without giving up. That's a hard one, right? It's hard to think of that. Um, Letting go, what does that look like? Letting go without giving up. Well, I think many of us carry burdens God never asked us to, but we think we have to. That's the control that I'm talking about. Thinking that we have to do it all. But you have to see that you took control the way you did because you were afraid. Many of our ill acts are done through fear. Our judgments, our criticisms, our control, it's always done out of fear. The fear, what does that look like? It's fear of being disappointed, maybe rejection, maybe overlooked, like you're really no one, so you need to speak louder. You need to be the voice in the room. You have to have your presence seen everywhere. You need to be honored. You need to be wealthy to think that you're someone, you know. But guess what? Carrying the emotional burden of all that is exhausting. And yes, in your workplace, sure, but often most of that you're carrying a lot of emotional, how would I say that? It's carrying emotional sort of temperature of your home. Like, you're sort of like you're the thermostat of your home. You can feel when it's cold and when it's tense, and you're picking up all your children's emotions, you're picking up your spouse's emotion all the time. And you trying to control that, it's exhausting. Release that control. You can still love your husband without fixing him. Okay? You don't need to fix him. Um, Instead, maybe pray for change without trying to control every step. I mean, that's what I've learned to do. I I I just realize, I'm not the power at hand here. And all I can do is pray for the courage, to make it through some days, right? But not controlling every minute of the day. Obedience is not about agreement, it's about trusting God's timing more than your own. And yes, that means patience. And that's probably the hardest thing, right? Patience is such a strong virtue to strive for, but it's so important. You know, so I'm asking from you a different kind of strength. I used to think that strength meant determination, the degrees and all the decisions of the home. Isn't that what empowerment means, to have it all? But it's so far from a sense of freedom, guys. The real strength and the real freedom comes in surrendering. And a past client of mine handed this over to me, a client who has become a very dear friend. She's a very devout Catholic, but she handed over the Novena of Surrender to me one day. And wow, that I needed that. And I often pass it on to my clients now because it says it the best. It says, it has you say this prayer over and over. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. Not take care of everything once it's gone my way. No, but everything. Things that have gone my way, things are not going my way. Please take everything. I hand it all to you. Even the parts that I think in the moment I can do better, I hand it to you. Stop micromanaging your life. Because, that kind of surrender, the one I'm talking to you about, that's what changes your home. Because instead of being the judge, you become the intercessor. You speak to Jesus, you ask him to take over everything, and you'll see how peace enters your home when you do that. So you don't have to be the warrior wife anymore, but instead maybe the warrior of prayer, the strength in prayer, as Mary did, you know, that humility, that intercessor, like I say, it becomes extremely powerful. Um, so yeah, this is not about obeying a flawed man. It's about obeying a perfect God, a God that's always listening to you, always there for you, always, always loving you incredibly. Tender, tender heart. Not just being nice, but being full of love. And once you feel that, once you see it, it all makes so much sense. What are you doing with all your worry? With all your needing to fix things, all your judgments, all your criticism? Stop it, release it. And when you do that, your marriage stops being a scoreboard and becomes sacred in what it's meant to be. Okay, with God at its center. That's how you have to do it. That's how you have to see it. That's how you have to feel it. Obedience doesn't erase confrontation, it refines it. It says, I will speak truth, but not out of pride, fear, or spite. I will speak it rooted in love. So here's what I want you to do. Let me ask you this. Where in your marriage have you mistaken control for care? Is there a space where God is whispering, step back, not in defeat, but in trust? Step back, lean back. Where is this happening? You know, you can hear it. So start doing it. And if you're tired of being the glue, keeping it all together, you know, the clock, the conscience of the entire family, maybe it's time to surrender. Again, not because you're weak, but because you're finally ready to be led by the only one who never fails. And if you like what I'm saying here, I think you're going to I'm going to leave you a short little 5-minute meditation so that you can practice this, so you can release that heavy burden on your shoulders. If you've ever felt this sort of tension between sort of the strength and surrender, I'd love to hear it in your comments. I'd love to know if this helped you. And if you do decide to listen to the meditation, let me know if that's helped you as well. Let's, keep talking about what real obedience looks like in today's world, because we are not going backwards by doing that. We're just going deeper, and we're building our relationship with God and allowing Him to step in because He wants to, because He loves you, and He'll never leave you. Okay. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.